It's July 26, 1943. Above the icy North Sea, the B-17 flying fortress Ruthie II fights for survival. Around him, the formation of 120 flying fortresses shudders as over 150 German fighters scream in from the clouds. Focke-Wulf 190s roaring with relentless aggression. The air is thick with tracer fire and smoke. Cockpit alarms scream as Second Lieutenant John Morgan grips the controls.
"Bandits, 12 o'clock high,"
he shouts, eyes wide with disbelief, his voice tense with adrenaline. Bullets slam into the fuselage, and behind him, Engineer Tire Weaver screams in pain, clutching a bleeding shoulder. Captain Robert Campbell, the plane's pilot and Morgan's closest friend, slumps in his seat, a dark stain spreading across his forehead. Morgan stares in horror as Campbell slumps, but then against all odds moves the yoke erratically, throwing the bomber out of formation. Chaos erupts inside the flying fortress. With their lives hanging by a thread, Morgan knows one thing for sure: this is no ordinary mission. It's a fight for survival. Morgan's heart pounds as the Ruthie II veers wildly, breaking away from the tight formation that offers their only real protection.
"Bob, hold formation,"
Morgan pleads, voice cracking, but Campbell's movements grow more erratic, banking hard left then right, like a wounded beast fighting its own instincts. The cockpit is thick with tension. Morgan reaches out, trying to wrest control from his friend, but Campbell resists fiercely, his grip tight, fists pounding Morgan's face in a desperate, confused rage.
"Robert, please, you're hurt."
Morgan gasps, dodging blow after blow. The wounded captain's brain is clouded by trauma, but he fights like a man possessed, unwilling to relinquish command. Outside, the enemy is relentless. FW-190s scream past, guns blazing, and the Ruthie II shakes violently as shells tear through the wings and fuselage. The gunners scramble to keep up, the roar of battle deafening, but the loss of formation leaves them dangerously exposed. Morgan knows time is running out. He must take control before the Ruthie II is torn apart in the skies over enemy territory. Blood streams down Morgan's face, but he won't give up. Summoning every ounce of strength, he grabs Campbell's oxygen mask, ready to rip it away. But Campbell's wild eyes lock onto his co-pilots, a flicker of recognition and stubborn defiance burning through the haze. Before Morgan can act, Campbell shoves his arm away and lands another punch, sending Morgan staggering. Behind Morgan, chaos reigns. Gunner Keith Koski yells from the nose, eyes scanning the sky as tracer rounds zip past.
"Bandits, 1 o'clock level,"
He calls out, opening fire with his machine guns, desperately trying to hold the attackers at bay. Engineer Tire Weaver, blood pouring from his shattered shoulder, struggles to climb from his turret, his face pale but determined. Kosuke rushes to his side, slinging a parachute over Weaver's trembling shoulders.
"Weaver, you've got to bail, now."
Kosuke commands urgently. Weaver nods weakly, pain etched deep in his eyes, and shuffles toward the hatch, the cold North Sea far below. Inside the cockpit, Morgan wrestles Campbell again, finally managing to shove his friend's hands off the controls.
"Listen to me, Bob. We have to get this bird home."
Morgan insists, voice shaking with both fear and resolve. Campbell's wild eyes meet Morgan's for a brief, haunting moment before he collapses, the fight drained from him. Morgan tightens his grip on the yoke, steeling himself for what comes next. The Ruthie II lurches again as another burst of flak rocks the fuselage. Shrapnel tears through the underbelly like a fist through paper. Morgan fights the controls, muscles burning, breath ragged through his oxygen mask.
"Hold together, girl. Just a little longer."
Outside the cockpit, a Bf-109 dives from above, guns blazing. The bullets rip through the left wing, punching holes dangerously close to the fuel tank. In the nose, Kosuke watches in horror.
9 o'clock low, they're everywhere.
He squeezes the trigger. 50 caliber rounds thunder from his gun, lighting up the sky with muzzle flashes. In the back, the last waist gunner stumbles, dizzy. The oxygen lines are hissing, severed by a shell. One by one, the rear crewmen begin to slump, starved of air, unaware that hypoxia is creeping in like a silent executioner. And through it all, Morgan grips the yoke, the bloody body of his captain slumped beside him as another wave of enemy fighters screams in. The Ruthie II bucks violently as another burst of 20mm cannon fire shreds through the tail section. Alarms wail again. The oxygen line to the rear crew is severed. Morgan grips the yoke, breath ragged, sweat stinging his eyes as he forces the B-17 back toward formation. Behind him, Robert Campbell lies slumped and twitching, broken, bleeding, but still alive. Suddenly, a flash outside. A B-17 in flames peels downward, spinning like a comet toward the sea.
"We're next if I don't pull this together,"
Morgan mutters under his breath, forcing the fortress back into level flight. In the nose, Kosuke braces Weaver at the open hatch. Icy air howls through the gap.
"Pull the cord after you fall clear,"
Kosuke shouts. Weaver nods, barely conscious, and then Kosuke pushes. The wounded engineer vanishes into the freezing sky, parachute trailing behind him like a prayer. Kosuke slams the hatch shut, shut, eyes wide, heart pounding, then races back to his post. The mission isn't over. The enemy's still out there. Morgan's breath is ragged as he wrests control, forcing the battered Ruthie 2 back toward the formation. The roar of the engines is drowned out by the crackle of gunfire and the screams of wounded men. Morgan's hands tremble as he fights to steady the plane while glancing at Campbell, still unconscious, slumped over, blood drying on his uniform.
Keep her steady, John.
He mutters to himself, voice low but fierce. Suddenly the intercom sputters and dies, the lifeline between crew members severed. The oxygen tanks hiss, punctured by enemy fire, and cold dread seeps through the metal skin of the plane. One by one, the gunners in the rear grow pale, their movements slow, eyes glassing over, oxygen starvation creeping in like a silent killer. Morgan feels the Ruthie 2 begin to drift lower, the altitude dangerously falling as the plane wobbles under his unrelenting grip.
We're not done yet, not by a long shot.
He whispers, voice raw. The Ruthie 2 shudders violently as shrapnel rips through the thin aluminum skin, and Morgan fights to keep her steady amidst the chaos. His vision blurs from blood and exhaustion, but the mission presses on. The rear gunners, struggling for breath, continue firing blindly into the swarming German fighters, their fingers numb, their focus slipping. One by one they collapse unconscious in their stations, victims of the failing oxygen. Kosuke, now back at the nose turret, scans desperately for more threats.
Bandits, 3 o'clock low.
He shouts, his voice cracking but unwavering. Bullets slam into the plane and Morgan feels a sudden jolt as a fuel tank near the right wing is pierced. The pungent smell of leaking fuel fills the cockpit. Behind him, Campbell stirs, groaning, a flicker of life in the dying captain. Morgan glances over, heart pounding.
Stay with me, Bob. We're getting out of this.
Morgan says, gripping the yoke tighter. Suddenly, more enemy fighters scream in from the left, W-190s cutting through the flak. Morgan's jaw tightens as he braces for another assault. The Ruthie 2 lurches as more tracer rounds slam into its right wing, setting small fires that lick dangerously close to the fuel tank. The vibration shakes the whole aircraft as Morgan battles the controls, sweat stinging his bloodied eyes.
Bandits, 8 o'clock high.
Kosuke yells again, fists tightening on his machine gun. Ahead, black cotton bursts erupt in the sky. Black, the formation pushes into the storm of anti-aircraft fire, the city of Hanover looming beneath them. With no intercom, there's no way to communicate with the bombardier. Morgan can only hope he's ready. A deafening boom shakes the plane. Shrapnel tears through the fuselage, rattling the hull like a tin drum. In the nose, Second Lieutenant Kosuke steadies himself behind the bomb site. He mutters,
Come on, come on.
Calculating manually through the plexiglass. Through the chaos, he sees their target, the sprawling factories below. He grips the release. Bombs away. The B-17 jerks upward, lighter without its deadly payload. Morgan sees it on the altimeter and exhales.
Mission complete.
But the danger is far from over. FW-190s dive through their own flak, chasing the retreating bombers. The Ruthie 2, now out of formation and missing most of its gunners, is a sitting duck. Enemy guns open up. The tail is shredded. Morgan ducks instinctively as shells burst across the windscreen. Fuel is leaking from the starboard wing, dangerously close to the still-burning engine. He grits his teeth, leveling the bomber. Hours pass as enemy fighters continue to shadow them, firing whenever they can. But the Ruthie 2, though battered, holds firm. The German fighters finally peel off, out of ammunition, out of time. The skies grow quiet, but it's the silence of exhaustion, not peace, and the bombers begin the long turn for home. The fuel leak grows worse. Morgan lowers altitude to thicken the air and relieve the crew from the failing oxygen system. As the altimeter ticks down, 24,000, 20,000, 15,000 feet, Morgan stares at the trembling needles, a lump rising in his throat. He thinks of home, his father's old hands on a tractor wheel, the girl he left behind in Ohio. For a brief second, he lets the fear creep in. What if this is the last sky he ever sees? But then the crew begins to stir behind him, coughing, groaning. The descent has saved them. Below them, finally the edge of German territory, then green fields, then the channel. They've made it out. The mission is complete. The worst is behind them. An airbase appears in the distance. RAF East Wretham. Morgan clicks the landing gear, praying they respond. One wheel sticks and the second deploys only halfway.
Damn it.
The Ruthie 2 screeches across the runway, sparks trailing as one landing gear collapses on touchdown. The battered fortress groans, skids, and finally rolls to a stop in the grass beyond the tarmac. For a moment, all is still. Medics race in. Campbell is rushed to a field hospital, still breathing. Kosuke, Morgan, and the surviving gunners emerge slowly from the battered aircraft. aircraft, eyes wide at the sunlight. Against all odds, every member of the Ruthie 2's crew survived that harrowing mission. Tyre Weaver, the engineer who courageously bailed out over enemy territory, was captured but endured the hardships of a prisoner of war and lived to the age of 74. The skies above the North Sea had never witnessed such grit, determination, and brotherhood. In the face of relentless danger, these men held fast to hope and each other. The story of the Ruthie 2 is more than a tale of war. It is a testament to sacrifice, resilience, and the unbreakable bonds forged in moments when life hangs by a thread.